This is Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. From the corporate office to the cab of a truck, they're here to inspire and empower women in all professions. So gear down, sit back, and enjoy.
Welcome. We're an award-winning show dedicated to empowering women in every profession through inspiring stories and expert insights. No topics off limits on our show. We power women on the road to success with expert and celebrity interviews and information you need. I'm Shelley.
And I'm Kathy.
Have you ever wondered why someone can be incredibly talented, hardworking, and successful and still struggle with self-doubt? Have you ever been there? Why do so many brilliant women hesitate just when they're on the verge of something bigger? Why do we sometimes become our own biggest obstacle? Our guest today believes the answer isn't a lack of talent or ambition. She says the real battle often happens beneath the surface, where unconscious beliefs quietly shape our confidence, our decisions, our visibility, and even our income. Suzanne Longstreet is a master coach, neuroscience practitioner, master NLP coach, hypnotherapist, and the creator of Quantum You Activation. Known as the Millionaire Activator, she helps high-achieving women identify and eliminate the hidden patterns that keep them playing small so they can lead with confidence, make faster decisions, and build profitable businesses without burnout. She's also the two-time best-selling author of The Millionaire Brain and co-author of the Millionaire Codes. Today we're going to explore why so many accomplished women still battle imposter syndrome, the surprising impact of tall poppy syndrome. Yes, there is such a thing. And why success can sometimes trigger self-sabotage, and how rewiring the subconscious mind may be the key to unlocking greater confidence, purpose, and financial success. Suzanne, welcome to Women Road Warriors. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Thank you so much. I am delighted to be here.
Yes, welcome. My God, that's quite the introduction. Whew, you're quite the powerhouse.
Oh, I was going to say, and I sound so much better in Shelley's voice.
Oh, everyone sounds good in Shelley's voice. Her voice is clear, amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. You know, Suzanne, we have so much to talk about. Your insight is terrific. But before we get started, I wanted our listeners to get to know you. Could you kind of give us the cliff notes on how you began this journey to help people rewire their brains for success?
Yes, thank you. It started in first year university. I decided to take business, and I promise I'll fast forward. And I noticed that as I was looking at all of the studies, there was, if they had just communicated better, if they could just communicate better. And then I went through my business career and I got into real estate sales in my 20s, and I would do everything I could not to go door knocking and not to actually ask for clients. I was happy to just sit in the office and talk to all the other real estate agents, and you're going to be shocked. I didn't make any money. So I thought, well, that's not working. So I got a job in human resources because I thought, okay, this will help me. I'll understand human behavior. And then I migrated out of human resources and into communication, training, performance management, helping people talk to each other. So what I was noticing is that I was really fascinated by human behavior, and I was really fascinated by communication and helping people communicate better with each other. And then I left the corporate world. Actually, they told me to get out because they actually fired me for my behavior. And I was like, how do I go from an exceeds employee to you're terminated for your behavior? Yes, I had switched out of human resources and gone into the pensions area, which was, first of all, not a fit. And then I was realizing that, you know what, maybe the effects of my first marriage, which had been very abusive, were running me more than I thought they could even be running. So I thought maybe I should get some help. So I got some therapy, and then I started to learn more about spirituality, and I read Wayne Dyer and Louise Hay and all sorts of wonderful, wonderful people. But I wasn't changing. I thought I was changing, and I would do declarations and affirmations, and I would tell myself I was successful, and I would truly want to believe it. but I wasn't having success. And so finally, I did meet the man I'm currently married to, who was a delightful soul and just so kind. And he helped me to see, you know what, maybe there's some bigger things going on here. So then eventually I realized, you know what, I'm really struggling. I was going to be a coach. I decided to be a coach about 15 years ago now. And I was stopping myself. I was back to where I was when I was trying to do real estate sales, and I wasn't willing to knock on doors. I wasn't willing to ask people to be my client. I spent 5 years pretending to be a business owner and not. And finally, I looked at my husband and I said, "I got to figure something out." And he goes, "Yeah, you do, because you don't have any money coming in, and it's been like it was getting a little too long." So that's when I discovered this lovely lady. I was at a networking event, and she said, "Hey, do you want to come take my course?" And the first time she offered, I said, "No, I don't want to take your course. I don't need a course. I'm fine. I'm making $20,000 a year in my coaching business. I'm doing just fine, thank you." And then 3 clients fired me and I lost all my revenue, and referral partners stopped sending people. And I thought, well, I got to figure this out. So this lovely lady came back around and she goes, "Would you like to take my course in neuro-linguistic programming?" And I said, "Okay." I went into my husband. I said, "What do you think? Should I do this?" He goes, "You might as well, because you don't have a business and you have no clients. You might as well take the course." So I did. And I noticed that I was starting to change. I was starting to shift, and it was easy and it was fast. And I was kinder, I was gentler, and I realized, that behavior that I had been fired for way back, almost 20 years before this, well, that was called complex post-traumatic stress disorder as a result of being in my first marriage, which was abusive. And so all the pieces started to fit together, and I realized, oh, I can actually use these tools that I've just learned to help me, yay, and to help my clients. And so that's how I got into this work that I do, because it helped me exponentially. In fact, I went from $15,000 a year before all those clients fired me to 20,000 to $60,000 within 6 months. And I went, "Oh, this is really cool. This works really well."
Yeah, that's huge. Wow, what a turnaround. And that had to tell you, it's not me. It's what I've been through, and I just have to get through the obstacles that are stopping me. Now, neuro-linguistic programming. What is that?
It was actually created by Richard Bandler and John Grinder in the 70s. What they did is they were editing psychology books. And then they started to look at them. They were master's students or PhD candidates. And I thought, and then they started to look at what all the people were doing, these therapists and psychiatrists. And they went, "Oh, you know what? There might be a formula here," because Bandler was trained as a mathematician. So he had a mathematician's brain looking at psychiatry. And he wanted to figure out the root cause, the common denominator, the method, and the formula for it using his mathematician brain. And what he did is he looked at all the different people who were having incredible results with clients: Milton Erickson in hypnosis, Virginia Satir in family therapy, and numerous others. And he created a shortcut. So instead of taking years to cure, or not, we can't say cure, to work through and resolve trauma and phobias, he created a technique that works in 20 minutes. So and then other people started to learn this and started to see, wow, there's some really incredible results that people are able to have in a very short period of time. And so this body of work started, and NLP is kind of like the way that chiropractic was about 30 years ago. Nobody ever really knew what it was, and there's like, no way you're going to touch me, and why would you do that? And NLP is slowly gaining recognition as a real contender because of the work of these pioneers who've learned these techniques and are applying these techniques, and clients are getting incredible results.
So how does this work in 20 minutes? What does it do with the brain?
Honestly, and from a mathematician perspective, what it does is, okay, so let me tell you what actually happens. Every time you have if you have a fear or a phobia, what happens is we think about it all the time, right? The conscious mind and the unconscious mind wants to bring it to your attention. Say, remember the thing? Remember the thing? Oh yeah, I remember. And then you remember the emotion that you had with it. So it reinstalls it over and over again because you keep thinking about it. You keep thinking about it. You keep thinking about it. And every time you keep thinking about it, it restores it holographically in your brain. I'll explain that in a second. Okay, so it's now being restored over and over and over. So it's forming these gestalts of very heavy negative emotions. And so now when you see, for example, a spider, if somebody has a fear of spiders, they not only remember the first time that they had a fear of it, but they remember the remembered fear of the first memory. And then they remember the remembered fear. You see what I'm going? Like it's like, oh, it's building and building and building.
Yeah.
Well, what we do in using this 20-minute technique is we go back before the event ever happened. And we say to the brain, what if it didn't happen? Could you pretend that it didn't happen? And people go, sure, I could pretend it didn't happen. You mean I just make it up? Yeah, just make it up. Make it up like it didn't even happen. But this time, when you see it, maybe what you could do is, you know what, turn it into a cartoon character. You know, make it big eyes with big eyelashes. And now, wouldn't it be fun if it was all of the 8 legs of the spider were wearing pink stilettos that are sparkly? Can you imagine that? And when you start to do this, guess what happens to the negative emotion? It just disintegrates. And then you fast forward them through time, and then they see all these different things, and then they realize, how silly that I'm so afraid of this little thing that I could literally just step on, or perhaps even just use my fingers to shoo it out the door. Why am I so afraid of something that now I see it in my brain? It's associated with pink sparkly stilettos, maybe a top hat just for fun, these false eyelashes. Now it's not a big scary thing.
That's amazing.
So it's literally rewiring the neurology.
Yeah. And it's not something that's a threat anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Dean Michael, the tax doctor here. I have one question for you. Do you want to stop worrying about the IRS? If the answer is yes, then look no further. I've been around for years. I've helped countless people across the country, and my success rate speaks for itself. So now you know where to find good, honest help with your tax problems. What are you waiting for? If you owe more than $10,000 to the IRS or haven't filed in years, call me now at 888-557-4020 or go to mytaxhelpmd.com for a free consultation and get your life back.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
If you're enjoying this informative episode of Women Road Warriors, I wanted to mention Kathy and I explore all kinds of topics that will power you on the road to success. We feature a lot of expert interviews. Plus, we feature celebrities and women who've been trailblazers. Please check out our podcast at womenroadwarriors.com and click on our episodes page. We're also available wherever you listen to podcasts, on all the major podcast channels like Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Amazon Music, Audible, you name it. Check us out and bookmark our podcast. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, LinkedIn, YouTube, and other sites. And tell others about us. We want to help as many women as possible. We're talking with Suzanne Longstreet, the Millionaire Activator. She's also the 2-time best-selling author of The Millionaire Brain and co-author of The Millionaire Codes. Have you ever looked at a highly accomplished woman and wondered how she could possibly doubt herself? Success doesn't always silence that inner voice saying, you're not ready or you're not good enough. Suzanne helps women overcome those obstacles. She's been talking with us about things like neuro-linguistic programming and rewiring our brains for success. Suzanne, why do so many women hesitate just when they're on the verge of something bigger? Is it one of the fears they have that they're not aware of?
It can be. It can be related to an event that happened when they were very young And oftentimes what happens when we're really young and something happens, we're not equipped to handle it emotionally. And we get flooded with all of these emotions that we don't even know. And so the unconscious mind, which is always wired for survival, that's why we're here, because our ancestors were incredible at making sure that they didn't eat those red berries with the shiny leaves, because those were the poisonous ones. So our survival brain is doing very well. And so here we are in present day society, and we're constantly wired to find out, where's the threat? Where's the threat? Where's the threat? Okay, because we're wired for evolution, for survival. So now, and the other thing is that the unconscious mind wants to keep us safe. It wants to keep us in the place where, well, you've survived that. Let's keep you back this safe place. Let's put you in a room with lots of padding. I just want to, let's just keep us all safe.
Yeah, yeah.
And then here we are, and we go, you know what? I want to build $1 million business. And the unconscious mind goes, no, 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 no. Remember that one time in grade 2 when you wanted to make more money and they laughed at you? No, 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 no. You can't do that. And it brings up that unresolved emotion, negative emotion from when you were in grade 2. For me, I have a memory of my first memory of money was I had collected 100 pennies in our basement. And I was not even at school, so I was 4 or 5. So can we first of all say, holy cow, Suzanne, you were able to count to 100 pennies. So, but that's not my mother's reaction. I held up this handful of pennies and I said, Mommy, I have $100 in my hands. She laughed so hard. Oh, Suzanne, you don't understand money at all. Let me tell you, have your father help you understand money. So then I went from delight, joy, abundance to, in a second, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm stupid. I'm not worthy of money. All of those beliefs went in that second. We understand. My mom is still alive today. She would never, if she ever heard that I had felt that way as a result of her laughing at me, she would be horrified. She would say, "Oh my gosh, I know that's never my intention," because she loves me.
Mm-hmm.
But that's unfortunately the effect. So imagine stepping forward in my business and that's running. So it's running on repeat, like a record player inside of my unconscious mind. All of the beliefs, all of the emotions, all of the energy around that moment in time.
So we're really shaped by the adults around us.
Yes.
And that's really frustrating because we come out of the birth canal and we're a person that has all of this potential. We don't have any fears. Fears are learned then.
Yes, very much so.
This is so accurate because I'll give you an example. I come from a very traumatic background, and growing up, with all the messages that you're not good enough, you're too stupid to live, all blah 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 blah. And even though I operate the world's largest equipment the biggest equipment in the world, and I'm filled with confidence in everything that I do, every single time, up until recently, let me add, every single time there's a pickup which represents a supervisor, that fear of authority stemming from the violence as a child. Every time I see a pickup near me, I used to immediately go into panic mode, immediately go into, oh my God, they're judging me. I'm going to get fired. I'm going to, these negative messages, until I would get into such anxiety. I would almost throw up, right? I'm panicking. Am I doing anything wrong? I'm self-analyzing. until I took this course recently that I won the scholarship for Women in Mining Accountability Leadership, where it does the NLP. It talks about that neuroplasticity and rewiring your brain and stopping yourself the second that you get that feeling coming, you stop it, and then you change that thought. And so I started doing that at work, and oh my God, what a difference it has made. It has completely altered the outcome of everything that I do, to the point where I just recently, it was 4 days ago, I had a yearly annual review, and my supervisor said, Kathy, I got to tell you, this is the best year I've ever seen you've ever had in the 13 years here. He said, I don't know what you've been doing, but keep doing it, because we see it in all aspects of how you manage yourself at work. And that's simply because I rewired my brain.
Wow.
Hey, what a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I was shocked that he noticed.
Oh, people notice more than we think. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it works. It definitely works.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you stop something where that doubt starts creeping in and that little voice saying, you can't do this, you can't do this? How do you just stop?
Yeah.
You catch yourself. Self-awareness, right? I'm not saying this just from my very recent experience with it. As soon as you start talking, that it starts coming into your brain that, oh my God, nope, stop. And then I physically, I try to imagine a rewiring, a changing of paths, so that instead of going down one path, I kind of try to, I'm very creative. So in my mind, I'm like, no, you're not going down that way. We're going to change paths. And then just the fact of my stopping that, all of a sudden it changes. So I don't know. I think it's self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So what you did, Kathy, is you became aware of what used to trigger you.
Yeah.
And we always have a trigger. Before a strategy can run, which creates a behavior, we have a trigger, which is always external. So it's something that somebody used to say, or something that you see outside of you, something that you hear. And so as soon as we are able to identify the trigger, so you identified it as the supervisor's pickup. And then what would happen is a strategy runs inside of your brain. And basically it brings up a face or a voice that you heard before you were even 7 years old, that put that voice in, or that face that would remind you. And then it would bring up these negative emotions, and it would just all fire. This happens in less than a nanosecond. And then the behavior would happen. You would literally prepare for the worst and expect the worst. So you would put firewalls up, protection, you would pull within, you would start to run a fear pattern. So when you've now identified the trigger, you can say, oh, there it is again, but I'm safe. You literally changed the strategy. You went, that's not going to bother me. I'm fine. My supervisors are great. So you changed, instead of the voice from the childhood trauma, you just put in somebody probably more positive. And then you put in new emotions that are more positive, and then literally the behavior changes. So many people, and in fact, so many therapists and everybody, there's a lot of people who work on, let's just change the behavior. Let's just change the behavior. But what I just shared with you is that the behavior is the last thing that happens after the emotions fire, after the internal messaging that happens, whether what's an old voice that you hear or a face that you see, well after the trigger. So in neuro-linguistic programming, we go back to the trigger, find out what the trigger is, and then change the pattern. And then the behavior shifts so much quicker.
What if somebody can't identify the trigger? What if they have?
That's when you work with somebody, like literally.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my job. In fact, when I'm working with people, it's good that you were able to figure it out for yourself, Kathy. A lot of people can't even figure that out. They don't have that much self-awareness because they've had some big things. Like I've worked with people who have been molested and abused and raped and multiple rapes and, and gang rapes. So that's still running, even though I've had people say to me, oh, Suzanne, I've had those things happen, but I've done the work on those. And every single time there's still some sort of a tendril or a pattern that's still running that they weren't able to get consciously or even subconsciously. We have to go deeper into the unconscious mind and using hypnosis, we put them into trance and we have their unconscious mind rewrite it for them.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
We're back with Suzanne Longstreet, the Millionaire Activator, and the two-time best-selling author of The Millionaire Brain and co-author of the Millionaire Codes. It's amazing how so many brilliant women hesitate just when they're on the verge of something bigger. Many times it's a fear. Something in our past triggers that fear. According to Suzanne, identifying the trigger is key. Many people work on the behavior, but the behavior is the last thing that happens after the emotions fire and the internal messaging happens. And that kind of messaging is what holds us back. We have to go back to the trigger, find out what the trigger is, and change the pattern, and the behavior shifts. That puts us on the road to success. Suzanne?
Do you work with people remotely this way? Is that a possibility? Okay.
Always. Yeah. It was funny because in April of 2020, when the world shut down, my sister, who's a psychotherapist, she called me and she said, "Oh, Suzanne, are you okay? How's your business?" And I said, "My business hasn't changed." Why are you asking?" She goes, "Well, I can't see anybody because they come into her house, right?" And I said, "I've been working remotely since 2011. I do this all via Zoom."
And everybody kind of started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
The pandemic exacerbated fears to a serious crescendo. In terms of fears, PTSD, all of the above, that brought out just an avalanche of it across so many countries with the shutdowns. I mean, we were living in the twilight zone. People had no
Really?
clue. Yeah,
It's so true.
yeah. It was just bizarre, you know.
Like,
And then you go out into a store. You're allowed to go to the grocery store, but you got to wear a mask. Oh gosh, I remember going to one of the stores, and there was a guy wearing a Darth Vader mask, and I just jumped. I'm like, what the heck? And something over his face like he was an arc welder. I'm like, what the heck? Wow, this is just creepy. No.
And so now your brain fired. So it fired in your brain. And when it fires and then it wires together an anchor, it can, you laugh about it, but it was Darth Vader and that caused you to startle and jump. Somebody else who maybe his neurology isn't as formed, like a younger kid, they would say all masks, they would just group that all together and say, all masks are bad. Anybody who has a mask is bad, stay away from all. And so like that would create trauma in that person.
Yeah, it's very true. And children don't process things the same way. They don't have the life experience.
Exactly. Their neurology hasn't formed fully yet. It takes years, as we know, sometimes until years and years. It depends on the person. But the before the age of 7 is when we tend to go back to whatever happened in those years. So
Yeah.
somebody will say to me, this happened when I was 19 or this happened when I was 25. And I'm like, okay. And we're going to go back to before you were 7. And they look at me like I'm crazy. What do you mean? Why wouldn't we just go back to 25? No. Because there was a belief or a decision that was formed before you were 7. And that became the original gestalt. Just like, how, an oyster forms a pearl around grains of sand.
Yeah.
So what happens is the original root cause, the first event is like that grain of sand. And in our unconscious mind. And then as events happen around us, it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And it literally forms pearls in the unconscious mind. And so that when a negative event fires now. So for example, something that makes you have fear because you saw somebody with a mask, it might be because if there's lots of fear, so for example, Kathy, you had a traumatic childhood. If there's lots of fear, then that fear fires every single event that ever happened to you.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, when you think about it, people have fears and they start with all of these avoidance behaviors. And they can be what they say OCD, obsessive compulsive, and they can't stop themselves. It's a way to control that fear, but it's so counterproductive. And they get stuck in this and they forget what they're trying to really do. And it's like your brain really can just overwhelm you.
Exactly. So we go back and what's the opposite of overwhelm? Underwhelm it? Undo it?
Yeah, which makes sense. And achieve serenity. Would that be it? Yeah.
A lot of times what happens with clients that I work with, they say to me, Suzanne, I just, when the thing that used to bother me, like make me crazy, or make me really afraid or make me really angry or really sad or whatever, it used to trigger me. I'm just now completely neutral too.
Yeah, because, I think a lot of people are not, like you said, self-aware. And this kind of if they have a fear or something that's stopping them, they may not know why. And it can just leak into every single aspect of their lives.
Yes.
And it could be really debilitating.
It is. Yeah, absolutely. We have a saying, how you do anything is how you do everything. As Kathy observed, her supervisors are saying, you've really changed. What have you done?
Kathy, you became yourself. I mean, you were being yourself. That's what's changed, right? I mean, you were tapping into your incredible potential and not letting a fear hijack that.
Exactly. It is literally called the amygdala hijack.
Okay. So that is a good word. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Exactly. Yep.
For those who don't know, what's the amygdala?
It is the part in the middle of your brain that fires when there's a threat. And it causes you to freeze or take flight or fight or fawn, which is the newest one that they're saying. And but it's basically the thing that causes you to take flight or fight.
So what is fawning?
Fawning, oh my gosh. Fawning is a newer one that they just come up with. I did this a couple of years ago. We were closing our property, our home, and I went in to see the lawyer. And I remember saying to the lawyer, because I needed to impress the lawyer that I am making money in my business and I am going to be providing, able to provide have the mortgage, and I had to convince him that I would be able to come up with my portion for the mortgage. It wasn't just my husband who has a full-time job. I was actually a contributor, and I went on to tell him how great I was. And I left going, what the heck? Why did I need to convince the lawyer who I'm paying that I'm going to be able to have the mortgage because I've got this successful business? Like, where did that even come from? That's fawning, is let me convince you how great I am. Let me show you how great I am. Yes, it has other names too, but when it's a fear-based response, it was like, oh, I've got to prove to you I'm so amazing.
Okay. So it's actually maybe motivated by a little bit of self-doubt.
Fear, self-doubt, absolutely. And I was talking to my NLP coach about it, and I said, I was aware of the behavior as I was doing it. I'm like, what the heck am I doing? Why does this guy need to know anything about what? I was literally aware of it. And then I talked to but this was the first time that I had heard about fawning, and I went, oh, amygdala hijack. Okay. So we just did a quick technique and cleared it for me. So I haven't done that since, thank goodness.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. And the thing is, though, with everything you're doing, you're aware and you can stop it. And this is just, it's so empowering to anybody, because I think a lot of people go through life and they have no idea why they're doing what they're doing. They're frustrated. They know inside they can accomplish this, but for some reason they just aren't. And I think women may be suffering from that more than men, based on socialization and all of that too.
Stay tuned for more of Women Road Warriors coming up.
Industry movement Trucking Moves America Forward is telling the story of the industry. Our safety champions, the women of trucking, independent contractors, the next generation of truckers, and more. Help us promote the best of our industry. Share your story and what you love about trucking. Share images of a moment you're proud of. And join us on social media. Learn more at truckingmovesamerica.com.
Welcome back to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro.
We're back with Suzanne Longstreet, the Millionaire Activator. If self-doubt and limiting beliefs were learned, can they genuinely be unlearned? Suzanne's work focuses on identifying and changing the subconscious patterns that influence our confidence, our choices, and our results. Sometimes we're triggered and our fears get in the way, and sometimes we go through what's called an amygdala hijack. But what does rewiring the mind actually mean? Suzanne opens the door to self-knowledge and the infinite possibilities through neuro-linguistic programming. She's sharing some tremendous insight here on the show. Suzanne, now you have a term here I find very interesting, tall poppy syndrome. What the heck is that?
Yeah. This was based on a study that was done by the Women of Influence in January, February 2023. And they identified that women have significantly different experience in the workplace than their male counterparts. And so what it is we tend to females more than males. Now, this does apply to some men, okay? Because my husband is very adamant about that. Suzanne, not just females. I'm like, yes, dear, some men too, but it's mostly women, and they studied women in this study. And what we tend to do as females is we don't want to speak up too loud, or we don't want to stand up too tall. And so we tend to shrink back, and just like a poppy in the field, we tend to not put our head up too high in case that somebody will come along and chop it off, because we've experienced that. You know, you've heard it, you've seen it. There's a great movie. I cannot remember what it's called. It's just come out, or it's late, something about ladies, and it's just come out, and it's on Netflix. And basically, she's at an ad agency, and she's in the old boys club, and the only reason she gets put at the table is because they need to do this for the client that they're hiring, and they need to show that they're equitable, and they have females in the leadership roles. So she comes in, and all these guys are kibitzing about how they're going to do this beer commercial, and she says, well, I have, and they say, oh yeah, we don't need anything sweet here. Why don't you go get some coffee for us? And she's like, she sits back, and they all kibitz, and they come up with this great campaign that's going to be about selling beer to women. And she says, well, I have an opinion. And they said, that's okay, sweetheart. Why don't you just go get us some donuts? And the right. Okay. That's how tall poppy syndrome happens, is because we're trying to say something and then we're shut down. Now, that's an extreme example, right? But it's a great way of showing that's typically what has happened, is the women were shuffled off, shut down, and pushed aside. And so when we're now starting to try and speak up, what's also happening, what this study also said, is that it's not just the men doing that, it's also other women.
You know, I think people don't want to be criticized, and they do this, but they also want to avoid conflict.
Yes. And there's a real thing around, I don't want to be wrong. I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to. So that's right.
Yeah.
So, you know, unless I know the exact answer and it's 100% perfect, it also goes to, I won't speak up. It also goes to I've talked to so many recruiters. There was a woman that is a friend of mine. She is a recruiter for multiple law firms. And she'll look at two resumes. She'll get the guy's resume and the female's resume, lawyers. And they always put a salary expectation. The woman, according to my friend who's the recruiter, she said the women typically undervalue themselves by about 40%.
In terms of money?
Correct. The men typically inflate it 40%. And then,
That's not surprising.
right? And then the hiring team, the partners look at it and go, well, we know because they've done it. We know everybody inflates their salary expectations by 40%. So we're going to knock it back down. And so the female who's already knocked herself down by 40% gets even less than her male counterpart.
Why do women do that?
Tall poppy syndrome, fear of standing out, fear, and the witch's wound. There's a great book by Cecile Larson that she wrote a couple of years ago, and it's called The Witch's Wound. And she actually talks about the historical events that happened to women, very specifically two women in the 1400s, right up to recently. And so women live longer than men. This is her summary. This is a summary of Cecile Larson's book. Women live longer. So the rich husband dies. Now we've got the female widow in place. The male relative comes along and goes, well, if we declare her a witch, we can get the property. So they take her out. They send her to the convent. They did all sorts of horrible things in the witches, and they just to declare females imbalanced and not able to do this. And as a result, I believe that's still running in our genetics from an epigenetics perspective, is like that's some trauma that happened in the past. And they're now showing from an epigenetics perspective that trauma that happened past generationally is still in our DNA. So I believe that's also why we get into the boardroom and we're still running that pattern from, 400 or 500 years ago. It's like, okay, epigenetically in my DNA is if I speak up too loud and express my opinion, what will they do to me?
Yeah, burn you at the stake.
Right?
Yeah.
Chop off your head, burn you at the stake. It was hard for me to continue reading her book because I'll tell you, it was pretty graphic. So I got what I wanted. We'll just put it that way.
I would not have done well in medieval times.
Me neither.
No. Mm-mm. But it is interesting because women do live longer, but yet they have typically a much smaller savings when they retire. And that leaves them at a deficit.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is where getting empowered is so important in what you're doing. There was one other thing I wanted to talk about here. Yes, the hidden unconscious beliefs that sabotage income and visibility. This really plays into what we're talking about. What are we doing to ourselves, especially as women, that we're not going to have that runway when we retire financially?
It's very similar to the behavior that we have when we're applying for a job. How many jobs have you applied for in your lifetime? You've looked at the credentials that they're looking for, all of the tasks that they want. You go, well, you know what? I can only do 8 out of the 10 of those. So this is not my job. Whereas a man, typically, again, respecting my husband, not all men, will look at it and go, I can do 3 of those 10 things. This job was made for me. So why do we typically hold ourselves back? Why do we convince ourselves that we can't do it unless it's 100% perfect? Why do 75% of women have what was originally diagnosed by Suzanne, I forgot her name, Plants, way back in the 70s as imposter syndrome? Why do women have that more than men? I think it's because of epigenetics, what happened in our past, what's stopping us now as just little girls, how society has formed us, even though we say to young girls today, you can do anything, be anything, have anything you want, there's still that subtle look, or they're keyboard warriors. I cannot tell you how many clients that I work with that say, I don't want to put myself out on social media, especially video, because I'm afraid of what people will say about me. And that goes back to the witch's wound and the harm. There was another book that he was a guest on Oprah 20 years ago, and his name is Gavin DeBecker, and he wrote a book about safety. And is the person who famously said, women, we have to pay attention to our gut and often override that, because men are terrified of being laughed at. Women are terrified of being killed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's the difference. So is it any wonder why we really have to work harder to be seen on video, to put ourselves out there on social media, to put ourselves out there, to stretch our head up like a poppy so that we don't get cut? Like, there's a lot of stuff that's so deep in our unconscious mind, we're not even aware of it. And
Yeah.
everybody does it differently. Everybody has different meaning to their experiences. And it doesn't matter there was what happened to them or for them. It happens what meaning they make of the event.
And it's amazing how something can really change your trajectory, your experience, especially when you're very young.
Yes.
I was originally going to be a music major, and I was in college, and then I changed my major. But I remember when I was in high school, I auditioned for a music camp, and it was for piano. And there was this very accomplished musician. She was a professor. Anyway, I had to audition with a piece that I had prepared, and then I had to do sight reading. Well, I played a classical piece. She knew that I was classically trained. She threw in front of me a jazz piece with a very strange time signature I had not encountered. And you have a few moments to figure it out, and then you play. Well, she was very perturbed because I wasn't doing it right. Well, I had not encountered that before. She gets up on stage. She's got a ruler in her hand, and she starts clapping and clapping. And then she takes the ruler and starts whacking the Steinway I'm playing. I'm looking at her going, oh my goodness, is she going to whack me?
Yeah.
But that's stuck in my head.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
It fired and wired together in your head.
Yeah.
And it stopped you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember my piano teacher was there and watching this, and she said, that was horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, she was really upset. And I mean, being a teenager, you don't know how to process that. You handle it, but you really don't, you know? But when you're talking about the fear of being killed, well, I wasn't sure, But it makes sense. Yes, women are more vulnerable, and they are also conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to not believe in themselves. And even if their parents don't teach them that, the bigger world tries to draw them into that and put them in their place, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And
Oh.
so there's a way to get out of it, and that is we pay attention to become self-aware. We pay attention to the thoughts that we're having. That's the biggest one. And focus on what we want and keep taking action towards the goal.
Keep your eye on the prize.
Yeah.
Wow. These are some powerful perspectives, Suzanne. Where can people find you? Because I think that you can help a whole lot of women, and we've just haven't even scratched the surface here.
I'm very happy to have. I love helping people, and especially women. I am available at successandclarity.com. And please book a clarity session with me. It's an hour of your time. I'll ask you questions. I'll see what's happened, where you're going, and we can have a chat and see what's going on.
Do you have maybe a few nuggets that you can share with our listeners before we close on maybe how they can get empowered for today and really take some of those fears and just shove them in the closet?
Yeah. I also have some recordings on my website and on Insight Timer. You can just look for Suzanne Longstreet. So, because I actually specifically around money, because what I've seen is that women who have had trauma or past challenges often will stop themselves from being bolder, and therefore it does affect their revenue when they're an entrepreneur, or even their income if they're in the corporate world. And so those are on Insight Timer, which is a free app. But what the biggest thing is honestly just keep paying attention to your thoughts and What is it that you're telling yourself? And how do you describe yourself to your girlfriend? And what are you saying? Because Deepak Chopra says this, the unconscious mind is always eavesdropping on what the conscious mind is saying. Because the conscious mind is the goal setter and the unconscious mind is the goal getter. So if you keep saying, well, I'm too stupid to make money, or I this, or I that, the unconscious mind goes, okay, no problem. If that's what you want, that's what we'll do. So program yourself for what you want rather than what you don't want. So paying attention to your thoughts, knowing that your unconscious mind is always listening, becoming more self-aware of what triggers might be stopping you from having what you want and how you're feeling. And the clues are the emotions that you're feeling. Whoa, where's this fear coming from? What's going on? What just happened? Pay attention to that. This anger, whatever it is, just pay attention. What just happened? What was I just thinking? And that will be a clue to help you to start to unravel what's really going on for you.
That's powerful. Oh my goodness. Suzanne, what is your website again?
successandclarity.com.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with our listeners.
What a great conversation.
I just loved it. Thank you so much, ladies. I appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure.
If you're getting value from our show, Women Road Warriors, be sure to hit follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss out on what's coming next. We hope you've enjoyed this latest episode. And if you want to hear more episodes of Women Road Warriors or learn more about our show, be sure to check out womenroadwarriors.com. And please follow us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. On our website, we also have a selection of podcasts just for women. There are a series of podcasts from different podcasters. So if you're in the mood for women's podcasts, just click the Power Network tab on womenroadwarriors.com. You'll have a variety of shows to listen to anytime you want to. Podcasts made for women. Women Road Warriors is on all the major podcast channels like Apple, Spotify, Amazon, Audible, YouTube, and others. Check us out. And please follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to Women Road Warriors with Shelley Johnson and Kathy Tuccaro. If you want to be a guest on the show or have a topic or feedback, email us at sjohnson@womenroadwarriors.com.